Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
First, a word from our sponsor. The Daily Compliance News for August 20, 2022 is the EU More Corrupt edition. And we begin with that story from EuroNews, a first-time contributor to the Daily Compliance News, who asked the question, is corruption really getting worse in Europe, or are perceptions all wrong? On the face of it, the European public has become much more better at turfing out corruption-tainted politicians. But does that mean more corruption is going on, or does that mean people are just more aware of it? Unfortunately, over 2/3 of persons in a Eurobarometer poll found that, or rather said that corruption is still widespread within their country. So the perception of corruption by Europeans is increasing. Next up, a federal judge has blocked the state of Florida's attempt to prevent anti-discrimination training. Yes, you heard that right. The state of Florida doesn't want companies to teach anti-discrimination training because it might trigger white people. Can you believe that? Just one more inane, idiotic attack on corporations by the governor of Florida and the Florida legislature, starting with their attack on Disney for supporting its employees. And now the state of Florida tried to mandate that it was illegal to teach anti-discrimination law as mandated under EEOC and other regulations. So if you think Florida is business friendly, Mel, you need to think again. Next up from Reuters, prosecutors say Archegos tried to lull banks into a false sense of security that its survival was not at stake in an unsuccessful bid to forestall the collapse of its $36 billion private investment company. The accusations came in a filing in Manhattan federal court where former Archegos owner has pled not guilty to 11 counts of fraud, market manipulation, and racketeering conspiracy. Prosecutors said Archegos misled banks dozens of times in the 6 months before March 2021 demise about its liquidity and how concentrated its portfolio was in order to borrow money and make huge bets through return swaps. So did Archegos mislead the banks, or the banks just weren't paying attention? And finally, from the Wall Street Journal, Risk and Compliance Journal, Mingy Sun reporting, the U.S. has extradited a Russian accused of money laundering, and he's tied to the Ruyak ransomware gang. Denis Dunikov, a 29-year-old Russian, was extradited from the Netherlands to the U.S. to face charges of laundering more than $400,000 in Ruyak proceeds. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.